Don't hesitate to stop and ask me if you have questions. I'm going to spend most of my time on what I believe all of you have as part of your packet, these financial highlights. They're very similar to what we've talked about in the last year. It gives you a snapshot of where the village landed at the end of the year for its primary funds. Just a few things I'll mention before I jump into this. We just issued finals a couple days ago. I actually brought the paper copies to Scott tonight. And while I'm not going to go through the financials because we had the summary, I will mention one thing, that we issued, once again, an unmodified opinion, which means your opinions are prepared according to generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. It basically means you followed all those accounting rules, and there's about 100 of them now, and that the numbers are materially correct as we audited them. That's the level of assurance you want from the external CPA firm. It's important to your granting agencies and the banks and others, so you definitely want to keep that going. It's a lot of work to get there. The other document that we issue is called this Reporting and Insights, and this has a whole host of things within it. It includes, what are our responsibilities as your auditor. Sometimes there's a misunderstanding. We're really GAAP auditors for this engagement to issue that opinion that I just mentioned. It talks about areas we focus on during the course of the audit, certain risks. There's several pages that require communications, things like, did we come across fraud during the audit? Well, no, we didn't. Were there significant challenges or disagreements with management? No, we didn't. There's nothing like that in there, in those 3 or 4 pages. But if there were, that's where we would have to bring that up. It talks about new GASBs, or accounting rules, and there's a few of them that are, 2 are going to be applicable next year, and there's a couple more just beyond that. But the one area that probably captures most people's attention is the internal control comments. There's just one for the village. It's been there as long as I can remember. It's in many of our reports. And if you've seen me up here before, I sound like a broken record, but it's because we prepare the village's financial statements just like we do for most of our governmental clients. Most governments just don't have the resources to prepare a full set of financials. And the auditing standards, a different set of rules, say, if they can't do that, or even if they do that, and you have material adjustments, then the controls were not in place to prevent this comment. So that's why that's in there. So we prepare the village's financials, and we did have some entries during the course of the audit this year, which are in the back of that report. All right, with that said, I'm going to walk through the graphs. And I'll start on page 1, obviously, and this is a bar graph of your general fund. And because you have 2 years, the light blue is the current year, 23, and 2022 is the black year. So in governmental fund balance reporting, you can have up to 5 different components, or I kind of think of them as buckets. And the village has 4. I'm going to start at the bottom, actually. So that 136,000, very small percentage of the total fund balance, and that's just made up of what has been paid for 2024 expenses before the end of the year. So they're prepaids. So it's basically your fund balance is kind of tied up. So GAAP drives that category. You don't really have a choice over it. Then there's a little bit in restricted. These are external restrictions. These amounts have been set aside for the maintenance of Kep Park. Nothing in committed. And then we've got 1.4 in assigned. And this is all detailed out on page 45 of the financial statements, but the village has done a very nice job, as long as I can remember, of setting aside specific amounts for different activities of the village. So the police and parks, there's a specific capital project amount, and a few others. But then there's one that's really reliant upon how the general fund does at the end of the year, whether it has a surplus or not, and what amounts have to go in those other categories, and that's the amount that's assigned for infrastructure purposes. And that went up a little bit from last year. It's up to $1,294,000, so almost $1.3 million. And as you see on the next page, the policy of the village, the fund balance policy, is what drives that number. So I'll get back to that in a second. The unassigned is also up to 3.4 million. That amount, as you'll see on the next page, is also not just derived from the results of the operations, but it's a policy amount. It's 40% of the subsequent year, so in this case 2024, budgeted expenditures. So that's a calculated amount. All right, so the overall general fund went up to just over $5 million, and you can see that change of about $820,000 in that small table, about 2/3 of the way down on this first page. Your revenues came in about $700,000 over budget. And that was driven in large part by the investment income coming in $345,000 over, and we've seen that everywhere this year. A couple of hard years in the past, but this year you saw that rebound. Ambulance fees came in over budget. Permits did as well. On the expenditure side, you can see it is under budget, just by about $112,000. Most departments are under. The details of this are all back on pages 56 to 58. I think the one that kind of stood out a little bit was police was under budget by $263,000. All right, so if we take that unassigned fund balance and we flip it to the next page, this is a graphical illustration of where your fund balance sits according to your policy. So not very exciting. It's right along that 40% line for each of the last 5 years. Again, it's set by policy. It's a calculated amount. So the best metric of where your general fund ended up at the end of the year is that infrastructure amount. And that did go, like I said, from 1.2 almost up to $1.3 million. So the intent of that is to set aside funds, if there is a surplus, to reduce future borrowings for capital needs. Okay, it's a great policy. All right, page 3. And the next page are focusing on debt. And page 3 takes a look at how much debt the village has outstanding at the end of the year. And it does it in a statutory manner. So you can see the black lines graphed out there. That's your debt limit. So 5% of your equalized value. That went up about 16% from the previous year. So a nice bump upwards. And the red line represents the general obligation debt, tax-backed debt that went down about $930,000. So as a percentage, the village is at 32%, which you can see towards the top of that graph. So you're utilizing 32% of your debt capacity. Last year, that was 38%, and 2 years ago, it was 44%. So it's been inching down about 6% for the last couple of years. Okay. At the bottom here, you can see how that breakdown of the debt, the $21.5 million of GO debt, where it is. And so about 12.9 is within the village's governmental funds, including TIF, and about 8.5 is in your utility funds. So obviously the GO debt that's in the utility funds, that was issued because you got a better rate than the revenue bonds. Okay, we've been seeing that a lot of places where revenue bonds are being paid off or gone in your case. And so GO debt does exist. Well, that's not being paid with taxes. As we know, that's being paid with the user charges. So while that 32% is a strict interpretation of the statute and where you sit, if you backed out the amount that's actually being paid with utility, you would be at 19%. Okay. The next page, 4, this takes a look at how much does the village pay in debt service, so principal and interest. And you can see at the bottom, you paid about $1.4 million, the same amount as last year, or very similar, I should say. So if you take, okay, how much do we pay in principal and interest, just like us, whether we're trying to to limit the amount we pay on our mortgage or rent, the general benchmark is about 20%. You want to try to limit your governmental non-capital expenditures to, and you're at 16.1%. Went down just a tad from last year, but consistently below that 20% that we generally recommend. The black dots in there are other places in Wisconsin of similar size based on population that we audit. You can see how you compare, so pretty similar. Right. I'll pause for a second. Any questions on that information? No? Okay. Good financial health. All right, the next few pages are taking a look at your utility funds. The first one being the water utility. This is the one that's obviously regulated by the PSC. Rates have been in effect now for the last 2 years. It's kind of a painful analysis that was done a couple of years ago, but those rates have seen two full years of being in place. So the authorized rate of return by the PSC is at 4.9. Think of that as a target rate. You're actually at 5.73%, so that's good. That's very good. If that was really low, you would start to wonder, what's going on? Do we have leakage? What expenses exceeding things, beyond our expectations, or what's happening here? What's driving that? But as you can see from the line graph, the green are revenues, black are expenses. This fund has had a positive operating margin in other words, revenues exceeding expenses for the last 5 years presented. Revenues did go down just a little bit this year, just 2%. Actually, the usage increased, but the volume charges went down, causing a lower rate to be applied for several users. So a little bit of a unique situation, but just caused a slight dip of 2%. Expenses are up a bit, 6% is what I calculated. That was driven primarily by a slight increase in labor, some testing expenses that had to be incurred, and then actually the pension liability that used to be an asset for the last several years with the state of Wisconsin, it flipped to a liability this year. So there's a related expense that runs through the operating statement for that. But still positive every year. Another way to look at the financial health of the unrestricted reserves in the middle here, and this is basically cash that's not restricted by like bonds or anything. And we generally recommend 3 months of unrestricted reserves for operating, plus another 12 or so for unanticipated capital needs. And you're at 13. So it's been very healthy for the last 5 years. There are no concerns there. And the last item down here is a calculated amount that all these utility funds are very capital or plant intensive. And so there's a calculation that can be done to say how much that comes through earnings and how much is coming through debt. And we try to recommend maintaining 50% or more of that coming through earnings. And your water utility fund is at 80%. So it's very good. If you have no debt, it would be at 100%. Page 6 is the sewer utility. So some similar graphs here. In this case, you can see the green line, the revenues have blipped up the last couple of years. Those are, that's being driven primarily by the new rates. There was about a 23% rate increase at the end of 2022. So in 2023, you saw a full year of those rates taking the effect of it. And a positive operating margin for the first time for the last several years. Unrestricted reserves, you can see you've got 16, went from 23 down to 16. Even though it went down, it's still, above that 15 that we would generally recommend. It has been using some cash for the last 2 years for some capital purposes. And you're 84% as far as the equity to debt ratio.
A quick thing. On the last few pages, you've made statements where we recommend, and it's not on these sheets. Is it in the full deck when you make a recommendation, like 15 months that you're talking about here?
It's not something we would recommend as like officially in the actual financial statements. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just during this presentation. I mean,
okay. I just find it very beneficial to hear those things, and I wish it was somewhere where, so that we could repeat the same thing in the future.
Yeah. As an auditor, we got to be a little bit careful about what we recommend in our reports, but just from an operational standpoint, that's where we're coming from. Yeah. And then on page 7, this is your stormwater utility. And you can see the revenues and expenses are almost like a mirror image of each other each year. And we actually do see this quite often. Again, there was a new rate put into effect, similar timing, November of 2022, similar increase. So the expenses are up as well. I'm sorry, the revenues went up, but so did expenses because of some maintenance costs that had to be charged to this fund during 23. Unrestricted reserves, now these have taken a hit, the last couple of years. As you can see, it was actually at zero. It had negative cash at the end of 2022, but that did go up a little bit to 1.47. So a big factor or a big influence of this is, do you issue debt or not for the stormwater? And in your case, you do have debt outstanding, but at what point is it relying upon the debt versus using available cash? And so that can impact how much you have in here. But it is going the right direction over this last year. As far as equity to debt ratio, you're at 69%. So last year was at 85%. It did issue some debt in 2023 in the stormwater fund. And so that's what caused a slight dip from 85 down to 69%. But you're still above that 50%. Page 8 is another utility fund, your transportation utility fund, which is obviously only a couple of years old now. This fund is, if you look at the income statement, you can see it has had a positive change in the net position or the equity in all 3 years it's been in existence. And that's pretty obvious from that green line, revenues exceeding the expenses. It's really been focused on the construction of the transportation center, and there's a large amount of construction of progress, as we call it, that's been going onto the balance sheet, and that's at about $1.3 million as an asset of this fund at the end of the year. So that's the focus of this fund. You can see the months on hand. As it's spending down those debt proceeds, it's gone from 29 down to 9 months. And you can see this one is heavily on the debt side because of the newness of the fund and it relying upon the debt for the capital. Last year, I think that was 100% debt because the debt exceeded the capital, but now that's starting to turn. And then lastly, not a utility fund, but an enterprise fund, so operates like a business, just like these last few that we've been talking about, but the Lehman Fund. And a little bit different analysis. It was kind of a snapshot of the balance sheet and income statement. For the assets, you can see, I guess the message for this fund as a whole has been very consistent. Slight increases each year, very consistent as far as operations go. But you can see the total assets went up about 2% this year compared to last year. That $350,000 that's in the current asset component of this is mostly cash. And the liabilities went down a little bit again this year, 4%, as that debt that was issued several years ago is inching its way downward. Equity is up 8%. And then your income statement, you can see you had a operating income or a gain of $100,000 for the year. Okay. And so it's up 28% from the previous year. So I know when this fund was created, there was some concern about it being sustainable or self-sufficient, I guess I should say, and it certainly has been since its inception. So it's been well run. We don't always see that in enterprise funds because you do your best to set the rates and everything and hope it works out. So that was a lot. Do you have any questions on the numbers or anything else for the audit?
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I have a question. The material corrected misstatements, are these common for you guys to do these, or is this something that we need to put in place? So, I mean, the idea of having an audit, you want to obviously have as many corrections, a minimal corrections as possible. I mean, obviously, it's still up to us as a village to make sure, or any business to make sure that our financial statements are accurate when the auditors come to look at them. Obviously, there's going to be some sub-corrections here and there. So I guess I'm just, from your perspective, is this normal? Is there things that we need to do differently? I guess we don't necessarily need to hash that out necessarily right now. I know we had a new accounting system that got put into place too, so I'm sure there's some things that are going through from that. Like, is that kind of
right?
Is this normal? I just want to make sure that going forward we kind of capture these things.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I always use it. Excuse me. It is normal. We have entries almost every audit. And it varies. I generally use as a rule of thumb, like 10 or fewer entries to be really, pretty exceptional. We did have more entries this year for the village because of turnover in staff, because of the new system. Some things were running behind for like the capital, and there's a lot of work that goes into the capital for the utility funds. So there's some late adjustments for that. Some of that we were just basically asked to do, to come in, and that's not unusual. Especially in times of transition.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I'm trying to gauge.
We try to help out, basically.
How is that?
Yeah. But I think, with continuing change at the village, it'll be important for people to reach out to us with questions, to get the proper training, all those things that Scott and I have talked about,
right.
For sure, because I'm 100% with you. The fewer entries, the better for the village and for us and for the board. When you come time to budget and everything, you want to make sure that you want to have the confidence that you're looking at numbers that are mostly correct. Absolutely. Most of the entries, though, are really balance sheet focused. So a lot of them are year end. The village, just like most governments, they go through the year. They collect certain items, they pay out invoices, and they get for the most part, in the right buckets. Those adjustments, I don't have the detail in front of me. Some of those might have changed, but pretty minimally. Most of them are, again, they're focused on the balance sheet, which is not what you're typically relying on. Now, with that said, a lot of the entries that hit the balance sheet also impact the income statement, but it's like pension and depreciation and things like that.
That's the kind of stuff I would expect to
Yeah,
see at the end.
but like taxes were good. A lot of the areas that you would hope would be good certainly were, But it was up this year because of those reasons, and the hope is that we can get them back down to around 10 or so. Yeah.
Fair enough, but not unreasonable in the grand scheme.
No. It's a great question.
Questions or comments? I'm gonna ask Mike Gurley one. You've got a good Moody's rating, so I can say that the village is in good shape, but we do have some big issues coming up, or big costs coming up in the near future. So does it look like we're gonna be able to handle some of these major costs, or?
Well, you've had really good fiscal management, and that comes from the board. It also comes from Scott and the other people at the village have been here, and your bond advisors too. And so some places that we go to will have utility funds that are in the hole and the general fund's positive, or vice versa. One or more funds are kind of a drain on other funds. Collectively, it's okay, but the village is pretty solid throughout, which is great. You don't have a TIF that's highly leveraged. You have TIFs, but it's not, you're not crossing your fingers on it, so to speak. Utilities are all pretty solid across the board, as we just saw. You want to keep an eye on those rates, but you've done that, and you've taken the right steps, and so don't lose sight of that. But the thing about auditors, as you know, is we look back, and I'm talking about where you were at the end of 2023. Are you well positioned to finance major projects going forward? I would certainly think so. I mean, you are not utilizing very much of your debt capacity, so you've always got the ability to borrow if you need to. It's gone down and down for the last few years, and I know that was a focus a number of years ago. So I'm not as much of a finance person as I am an accountant who looks back, but it seems like you're in good shape for sure. I don't have any concerns when I look at what I see.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments as it relates to this?
I have a tiny comment.
Yes.
I went down a bit of a rabbit hole because you provided that really nice link to the Wisconsin policy.
Oh,
Forum.
yeah, good.
You
Good for
haven't
you.
taken a look at that? Don't do it tonight, because it'll be up too late. So being able to compare our standing to surrounding municipalities was really enlightening.
I'm glad you used it.
I did.
They used to come out in a manual, a paper copy, and since it's gone online, I've only looked at it once, so good. But it's got some great information, some very useful information out there.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would put a little caution, though, not to compare the village too much with other places, because every place is so unique with TIFs and the different operations and such, but it is interesting.
I only paid attention to the ways that we were better. So it was
There you go. There you go. If you don't have any other questions, I want to thank you again. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed working with Scott over the years. He's an amazing administrator, and we've been fortunate to have a great working relationship with him. He brings a lot to the village, as you know better than I do. So, and he brings a lot to the audit. He gets more audit questions than most administrators I work with.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank John and his team. Every year they come in, they ask a lot, but they're also very assisting throughout the year with staff. If we have questions, they're always asking for us to ask ahead of time rather than wait for the audit time frame. So it goes both ways. His team has always been very professional. I prohibit ties, but they do come in, they are helpful, and they want us to become more independent, which we were. And then we had some staffing transition over this past year, but again, they were very patient, very helpful, and very appreciate that. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item 3 then. Approval of the regular village board meeting, June 4th, 2024. I hope everyone's had a chance to look them over. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections as the way they are presented this evening? If not, could I have a motion to approve as presented?
Motion to approve. Rhodey?
Second, Cossett.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby adopted. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their opinions with board members on any topic they choose. However, due to Wisconsin open meeting laws, the board is not able to answer questions or respond to your comments. All comments should be directed to the board. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers are asked to please use the podium and state their name and address for the record. Is there anybody here that would like to make a comment at this time? No? Nobody wants to make a comment? Okay. All right, then we're gonna move on to item 5, ordinances. Remove from table possible action on ordinance number 2024-02, ordinance to amend the salaries for trustees and village president. This was tabled at the last meeting, so we need to have an action to remove it from the table, and then we can discuss it. So do I have anyone would like to make a motion?
Make a motion to remove from the table ordinance number 2024-02.
Second, Grabowski.
We have a motion and a second to remove. Any comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Okay, we can now discuss it. As we were going to discuss it at the last meeting, I had this put on, or not the last meeting, a couple meetings ago, to discuss that the board has not had an increase in their salary for, what was it, 10 years, Scott, almost? 6 years, 8 years, it's many years.
No, it was.
It was more
It
than
was
that.
No, it was
16,
like
it went up, and
it was like
16
six-
back to where the original, where it had previously gone.
Yeah, it was like-
gone down.
Yeah.
I have it as 2013.
Okay, and as things have progressed over the years, I've noticed that the board has been getting more and more involved in a lot of different things. This community is getting bigger, maybe not census-wise, but businesses and other things are coming into the community, and there's a lot going on now that is taking up a lot of time for the people that are sitting on this board. And having dealt with every one of you, you guys really put a lot of time and effort in when you are asked to do something. And when you are asked, there's usually no one that has turned me down. And you've gone above and beyond the call of duty. If you look at, I think if we really ran the numbers, if we were to say, okay, well, we won't take a pay increase, we'll just go to, 15 or whatever the average is right now for salary, hourly rate, I think we'd probably be way over what we're getting paid now. I truly feel that the $1,000 that I'm asking the board to increase is very minimal. We're all professionals up here. I don't know how to put it any other way other than that, you guys do the job, you do it without question, you get involved, and you're constantly doing more than just doing things on the board. You're getting involved in the community, doing stuff in the community, and a lot of stuff is gratis, and you're helping other groups in the community, and being out there and answering questions, even when you're not supposed to be working, you're working. So I truly feel that the $1,000 increase is not that big. And so with that, I will leave it to the board to discuss. Yes,
I wasn't at the meeting when this originally came up, so I watched the meeting, as I typically do if I'm not here. And I think a lot of valid points were made. But to, I believe it was Jim's point, we just had an election. We had 3 seats, and we had 2 people run who were incumbents. So just like any workforce situation too, you have to look at ways that you can attract people that are going to want to sit on the board. And that's one reason. We do put a lot of time in, our expectations are fairly high. Most recently, we've had a lot of special meetings that we've had to attend. We've had public hearings we've had to attend. We have strategic planning that's coming up now. We've had some staffing. We have had staffing turnover, and we have continued, we have to replace Scott, and that all takes additional time. And I really truly believe that we're valuable, and if we don't perceive ourselves as valuable, others aren't going to perceive us as valuable. $1,000 isn't a lot. We take a lot of time away from our families. I'm for an increase, quite honestly. I'll be completely honest. I think I would go for more, but I'm fine with the 1,000. Again, no one, and I agree, no one is up here doing this as a job or expecting to make a lot of money. That's obviously not the reason that people are up here. But other elected officials do get paid. I mean, okay, I know this is a little bit drastic, but our state senators and assembly, they're elected, they get paid $50,000 plus a year, plus expenses to sit on the state assembly. Yes, that's a much greater commitment than what this is. We had no problem issuing a raise to our municipal judge, of which she very much did deserve that raise, but also an elected official. So I don't think that we should feel any shame in giving ourselves a raise. I think we're all very, very valuable.
And to just point out, Kelly and mine and Kristen's would be an unbiased one, because this isn't our election cycle, so it wouldn't even take effect for ourselves until our next election in 2 years. So this isn't a blanket increase that hits tomorrow for any of us, really, or all of us, I should say.
I mean, a little bit helps, it's, again, like I say, it's nights away from our family, and so it helps with some expenses or do some additional things with our family, a little extra money, so I think it's a little.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, I'm done.
Yeah, Kelly did state that none of us do this for the money, but I think what we've got to keep in mind is we've got to think that anything that we do tonight would take place at the earliest for some positions, April 2025, and would affect positions and trustees beyond that. And I think that's what we've got to think about, not necessarily personally, but what this position will look like in the future for people. So I probably have done a little bit of an about face in thinking that, yeah, it's probably time after all these years to make some improvements, and not necessarily for people on this board, but for the future trustees in the village.
Anyone else like to make a comment?
I agree with that. I think
Yes.
being the being the new member up here, I did see a lot of conversation about the election and things like that, and I agree with your point about little things to help for the future to both of you is always beneficial. And I think looking back at that, it was 2013, and thinking of the cost of living and how drastically different things are now than when those salaries were set is probably a valid consideration as well. So I support that.
Heather, do you have any comments?
It's been the same amount the entire time I've been on the board, so I think it's time to increase it.
I'll be outvoted, but I will still vote against it. When I did a comparative analysis of surrounding communities, it did not feel to me like we were entirely upside down. Look, I value you all immensely. I value my time immensely as well, but I see my role as public servant, and I know that we have fiscal challenges ahead. So it's not something that I will vote to support.
Are there any other comments? If there are none, would someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve ordinance number 2024-02, ordinance to amend the salaries for the trustees and village presidents.
Second, Grabowski.
Just one clarification. So the draft in your packet has an effective date of April 2024 because this was considered first time before the most recent election. So you could amend your motion just to amend the effective dates to the third Tuesday in April 2025.
Right, I will amend the effective date to the third Tuesday of April 2025.
Still second, Grabowski.
We have a motion and a second to increase. Any further comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion is carried. Ordinance number 2024-02 is hereby adopted. Thank you, everyone. Possible action on resolution number 2024-09, resolution regarding the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources reporting year 2022 compliance maintenance annual report. For those of us who've been on the board for a while, we all know that this comes up every year. Are there any questions, comments as to what you are having to vote on this evening? If you do, we have Dave here
Sean.
and more.
And Sean, yeah.
So if you have any questions, fine. If not, I'll move for possible action if nobody has any questions.
You feel good with, you feel good with your reporting?
Yeah.
All right.
You can get my state of the story, Chris, here.
I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder if you really want to get up there, otherwise I could just approve it, so.
No, obviously everything's on notes that you guys have. If you have questions, I can answer some of them. I'm just gonna browse through some highlights and a couple bullets. If you need to talk, I'm pleasantly pleased to sit right here.
I mean, otherwise I'll make a motion unless, does the board want?
Is there anything that was big that might have happened that we missed, or something that you see that is important that we should note?
Nothing major. One of the biggest things I noticed is just from last year to this year, 2022 to 2023, our flows have went up at our lift station, our big one at the corner of Forest Grove and East Wisconsin, about 70,000 gallons a day over the year, which isn't a ton when you think about it, but our water usage has also went down. So we're gonna have to start looking at some, maybe, we have plenty of capacity as we speak right now, but we gotta work on some planning for future projects that we have in place. I know we have a couple old things that are getting replaced in the near future over by like Glacier and West Wisconsin. That'll help. But we should probably also look on trying to reduce our inflow and infiltration as much as possible to keep our numbers down. I know the sanitary district's numbers have went up and the cities have too, but we like to do our part to keep our numbers down best we can. That's pretty much my only comment, and unless you guys have any questions, we met all our goals and we got an A again, so life is good.
Sean, you know, of the 36 miles of sanitary sewer that we have, if you had a fix a percentage of the stuff that keeps you awake at night, of that 36 miles, is there a percentage that you think is, you know, is old and close to failure?
Not especially, that's not the part that keeps me up, it's the lift stations.
Okay,
Or generally the big one on the corner of Forest Grove, that's the one, if something happens there, we're gonna have all the news, and everybody's gonna be asking questions, what happened, what happened, what happened? That's the biggest infrastructure need in the village from the water and sewer side. We just gotta be diligent, and there's stuff from the 40s and 30s, not too much, but, and I think a lot of that is getting addressed in our upcoming projects, which is wonderful. But just trying to move forward and, take a little piece of that pie every year to upgrade our infrastructure.
okay.
Overall, I think everything's okay. Obviously, we can't fix everything at once, but we'll start picking our problem areas and tackle that with the best we can.
Thank you.
And that's nothing where we can, since that seems to be the pain point, where we can fast track that anymore?
We could, but it's hard to do as a solo project. You'd hate to rip up a road to redo the sewer if you just put the road down or the road's in good shape. Scott always had a good idea of tying them together with other projects, with if you're doing water or storm sewer, hey, let's maybe do the sanitary too. That's kind of a good way to go forward is, in my opinion, you guys have your opinions as well, and I value them, is with most road projects, if we're doing water, we should probably do a sewer. If we're doing sewer, probably not a bad idea to do water as well. Obviously, your costs jump tremendously as opposed to a mill and pave, but I guess it's an investment in the future. If we only have to take little sections at a time, that's what we got to do.
Any other comments or questions?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2024-09.
Second, Rhodey.
A motion and a second, further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, resolution 2024-09 is hereby adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Possible action on resolution 2024-10, a resolution recognizing the services of Mary Sensky to the village of Pewaukee as village planner. I'd like this read into the record, so. Let's see. Okay, resolution recognizing the service of Mary Sensky to the village of Pewaukee as village planner. Whereas Mary Sensky was appointed as village planner in 2008, and whereas Mary Sensky guided the village through 2 comprehensive land use plan updates and numerous zoning code amendments during her time with the village, and whereas Mary Sensky assisted the village plan commission and village board with development of the zoning code updates to facilitate the redevelopment of the former St. Mary's School and River Hills Nursing Home into infill neighborhood subdivisions, and whereas Mary Sensky was an advocate for elderly development and redevelopment and worked with the residents and developers as a guide to the planning commission review process, and whereas Mary Sensky was an asset to the village staff and village attorney during her tenure, providing sound guidance to navigate development concepts while keeping the best interest of the village first, and whereas Mary Sensky's expertise and knowledge of the village has produced quality developments and projects. Oops, I just lost the page. Dedication projects for the village for future generation. Now there be it resolved by the village board of village of Pewaukee, Waukesha County, Wisconsin, that it hereby extends its heartfelt appreciation for the dedication given to the village of Pewaukee by Mary Sensky while serving the planning commission and village board as the village planner, dated and approved this day of June 24. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve resolution 2024-10.
Second, Gergen.
Any comments?
I did get some information from Mary. She apologized for not being able to attend tonight. She did have a conflict in her new community. She is wanted to pass along that she was always proud and honored to serve the village during her time as planner.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 2024-10 is hereby adopted. Old business, we have none. New business, discussion of possible action on engagement letter with Baker Tilly for completion of a water rate study and rate application with Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. Scott, you wanna?
Sure. This comes about for a couple reasons. One being, when we had our rate approval in 2022, the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin had a requirement that within the next 5 years that the village was going to be required to submit a rate application for a rate adjustment. Prior to that, it had been since 1996 that the village had a rate adjustment. So they did not want to go back over 20-plus years of financials, which was a headache, as John can attest to navigate through the rate application of 2022. The other component, excuse me, is, as the board is aware, we are navigating through HMO treatment facility for well number 4. And as part of the approval for that project, because it exceeds the dollar threshold Public Service Commission had to grant approval for that project, one of their comments was that commission staff estimates that implementation of this project will result in the need to increase customer water rates by 32%. So it's a $3+ million project, along with other projects that we're looking at for PFAS for well number 6, also looking at well number 2, rehabbing existing and looking at a future new well to replace well number 2. That I think necessitates the need to make this application at this time. As John indicated, we are in a good financial position for the water utility, but part of maintaining that financial position is making these applications for rate adjustments in a timely manner so that we don't get behind the 8 ball and then come into a position where our reserves go below a comfortable amount. So that's the reason for bringing the engagement letter to the board at this time, to work with Baker Tilly again. They did assist us in 2022. I think they're well positioned to help the village move forward on this application.
Well, thank you for being proactive on that.
Dollar amount is generally in line. I had asked for an estimate for the budget. The proposed range is within that amount. So it is a budgeted item within the water utility. Consider approval of the engagement letter.
I'll make a motion to approve the engagement letter with Baker Tilly.
Second, Grabowski.
Any further discussion?
We need to note not in excess of 12,000.
You can notate as presented in the engagement letter.
As presented.
Yeah.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Discussion of possible action on award of contract for Compline Lift Station project. Are there any questions or comments as to the way it is presented this evening? Would you like to hear from David, or
Yes,
you would?
I would.
Okay.
So there's been a few staff memos that were included in the packet for tonight. Some people know all the background and others might not, but we have a lift station at the end of Kottmeyer Drive that receives sewage, and the lift station needed to be reconstructed. We had bid out the lift station to be reconstructed back in March, and the bids had come in $200,000 higher than we had hoped for. So we had talked to the low bid contractor, and they had put together a list of items that we could possibly reduce the contract costs. After we talked about it with staff and the village attorney, we decided it would be best to rebid it to give everybody a fair chance to put in a price on a new price for the project. So we just recently did rebid this project, and the low bid came in at, the total amount is $865,600. This is still over what our initial estimate was. So we actually opened bids about a month ago. Scott helped look around to try to identify some additional funds. In his memo, it talks about where he was able to review the unrestricted reserves that we had that we could utilize to help pay for the project. At the meeting when we did decide to when we did decide to rebid the project, one of the trustees did ask a question about if the city would also be helping fund this project. At that time, I didn't know, but the village attorney did find, after the meeting, find the agreement and sent it to Scott and I. And yes, it is true that the city is enlisted in the agreement to help pay for the project. So I did talk to Rupert Milky about that, and we had some, they did some flow analysis. So it's based on flow. And back in 2016, it was identified, it'll probably be right around, you can assume safely that it's about 90% of it would be paid for by the city.
Could you repeat that? How much?
90%.
Wow.
Really?
So the majority of the flow to the Kottmeyer lift station is from the city.
Wow.
So there's only, from the 2016 report, there's only 15 houses on Kottmeyer Drive that discharge sewer from the village to this lift station. The other end of Kottmeyer is in the city, and then that sewer also picks up sewage from other areas and upstream in the city.
Did you talk to the city
I
about
did.
this?
So I did call the city engineer. She called me back about an hour ago, and I just wanted to go over the project with her, give her an update, because she hadn't heard anything about this since about a year ago or so. So she's aware of that.
So wait, am I hearing this correctly, that 90% of the cost of this project would be picked up by the city
That was
per the agreement?
right.
Well, then I'm glad we went back and looked.
It's based on flow, so we're gonna work to get a current flow analysis, so we're not working off of old data.
That's true. So that number was from 8 years ago. But I did talk to the city engineer, and she didn't think the number of houses really has stayed the same in the village and the city in that area. We are looking into, and I'm working with Sean to either purchase or meter so that we can put up that lift station just to recheck the flow.
So then this is like doing the laundry and finding like $780,000 in our jeans? Like, because we were planning on having to cover the cost of this until we determined that, correct? What was put in the budget
So
for
we
it?
will initially cover it,
Right.
and we have to reimburse, or
Right.
then we have to invoice the city.
Yeah, 718,000, I think, was the borrowed amount.
Can I make a motion? Before it changes?
Yes?
We have to go to the second part of it.
It's always approval.
And then we will go to the second part. And that is, yes, I guess it's discussion Kottmeyer lift station.
It's all under one.
What's that?
It's still the same agenda.
It's still the same agenda.
Let's see if my motion works.
Go
I'd
for
like to
it.
make a motion to approve the bid from the lowest qualified bidder, Mid-City Corporation, in the amount of $903,800 and the mandatory alternate deduct bid of $38,200 for a total contract of $865,600.
Second.
Everybody wants to.
Second, Grabowski.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is hereby adopted. Discussion and possible action on LED lighting proposals for Village Hall Police Department and police garage. I know we've been looking at this for a while, Scott, so you want to just give us a quick update on this?
Sure. As I was reviewing the staff report, thank you. This afternoon, I do have a typo in the action requested. It says 38,348, it should be 48,348. There was a attempt to bid this out a couple months ago. We only had one bid. One came in late, rebid. We have two bids, lowest with Hutch Energy Corporation at 48,348. And then from that, there will be, once the final quantities are known, they will give us a deduct of the Focus on Energy rebate that would be provided as part of the project. All along, this has been a project I've been recommending we look at for ARPA fund expenditures. The building we're in is 2008, so constructed, moved in 2008, so technology is 16 years old, moving to LED fixtures. In theory, at least, reduces energy budgets. Granted, rates may go up, but then percentage-wise, the rate increase would still be less than if we don't move to LED lighting. So that's the pretense for the project.
Any questions or comments? Would someone like to make a motion
Make a motion to accept the offer from Hutch Energy for the LED lighting proposals for Village Hall, Police Department, and the Police Garage.
In what amount?
$48,348.
Right? Yep. Is it 48? Okay.
Yeah, 48, not 38.
Gotcha.
then? Do I have a second?
Second, Grabowski.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Next agenda item is possible discussion and possible action on HVAC proposals for Village Hall, Police Department, and Police Garage. Again, Scott?
This was the first time bidding this project out to replace the HVAC units, which are original to the building. Some have been repaired over time, but I think they're all in need of replacement and moving to new technology. Opportunity 2 being for ARPA funds for this expense. If this is something the board does move forward with, we'd be remaining about $346,000 in ARPA funds to be allocated for expenditure by 2026. That allocation would need to be done by the end of calendar year 2024.
Questions, comments? Donna, I'm looking for a motion then. Possible action?
So then how much would we have left of the ARPA funds?
$346,000.
Anybody?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to award the HVAC equipment replacement project for Village Hall, PD, and Police Garage to Kettle Marine Heating and Air Conditioning for the low price of $135,710.
Second, Rhodey.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby adopted. Discussion and possible action on scheduling special village board meetings for finalist interviews for village administrator. Scott?
Yeah, one of those prior references to special meetings. Looking at, the initial date was July 20th. I think we've got at least one conflict with that date. And then talking with Public Administration Associates with their availability, the possibility, looking at July 18th or 19th, to see if that might work. Their proposed process would be for, as candidates come in, before the interviews with the village board, to provide a tour of the community, a writing assessment, and then also kind of like a meet and greet with the department head team. Not that the department head team has a direct say in, but they've seen in other communities where that feedback from the management team being conveyed to the village board may be of assistance to the governing body in helping with the selection, if there's something that might tip one way or the other based on how the interviews go. So at this point, just looking to try and find a date, presuming ideally that all 7 board members can be in attendance.
So that would be the 18th or 19th, sorry, starting at?
Yes, yeah, they feel that they could get it done in one evening. I think the target is to bring in probably no more than 3, maybe 4, depending on the quality of the candidates, for board members to interview.
That was like a 4 PM start.
Yes, so that start would be the first interview with the board, so all the other things leading up would start earlier in the afternoon.
19th is a no-go for me.
18th is hard for me.
Yeah, I think I have something on the 18th. That date is jogging me for something.
Yeah,
It's poking me on that one.
I'm busy on the 18th and the 19th. I might be able to do an hour at 4 on those days, but I had set aside the time on the 20th.
Just curious, I understand I may have a more flexible schedule than others, but I know we have a couple of retired people on the board here too. I guess, what is the possibility of pushing it earlier? Pushing the time earlier than 4? I mean, I can come I can typically come anytime. Because I have that flexibility. I know not everyone has that type of flexibility with their job, so I'm just curious.
Thursdays are more flexible for me. I mean, I think I'm out of town every weekend in July, so that would be, Fridays would be no-go for me.
And the 20th, we were only missing 1 member.
I think it was just 1.
I was the one that was,
Nope.
that wasn't sure yet.
Oh, I'm missing the 20th. Like I said, I am out of town every weekend in July, so.
I can probably make the 20th work. I'm not a fan, I'm gonna be completely honest, no, I'm not a fan of doing it on a Saturday. One of our few Saturdays that we have in the summer.
Yeah, one of the problems we're faced with, obviously, we've got deadlines we're up against because God's not going to be around all that long. You know, so we took time out of the schedule that PAA gave us to try to get this done as quickly as possible and get the best quality candidates we can. And I realize these dates are not going to be perfect for 100% of it, but we need to move on this stuff.
I agree. When we hired the library director, we did it on Saturday, and it was very efficient that way.
What hours are we actually anticipating it being? So you said it would be like start before 4, so what?
That'd be on a
like
Thursday
2
or Friday.
like, yeah.
So a Saturday could certainly start earlier in the day. Yeah, I think if it's a Thursday or Friday, interviews, at least from what PAA was proposing, start at 4, but then the lead up to that would be the tours for the candidates, and then the first interview would be 4.
What are we thinking from our time commitments?
They're thinking interviews would be about an hour apiece, and then probably wrap up after that to see if the board's in a position to select a candidate and start the negotiation process for an employment agreement.
And we're looking 2 to 3 candidates?
Is like the 25th or 26th out for everyone?
And again, you're moving it even another week farther. Scott,
When do they
you're
want
officially
it?
retired when? Scott, you're officially retired when?
19th?
Okay, so
Do we have, can you remind me, do we have candidates yet?
Yeah, the recruitment is open. They've been receiving applications, and they've been, I think, I don't know any names and can't reveal them at this
Sure.
point, but I think they're generally happy with the candidate pool that they're seeing thus far.
then why don't we shoot for earlier?
Can we
8,
do
9,
like the
10,
11th?
11?
The 11th? What about July 11th? Is that,
I'll be out of town that weekend, sorry.
That's
No,
a
the 11th is a
It's a
Thursday.
Thursday.
Oh,
Plan commission.
sorry.
July 11th,
Yeah,
there's a plan
I'm-
commission meeting.
Yeah,
This puts us
but I
in
will
a
be gone that day.
Crazy situation again of trying to.
But what about
have
Wednesday
all these
the
people
10th?
coordinate their calendars.
Unless we want to cancel the plan commission meeting.
At well, trying to coordinate calendars at a late, last minute type thing. 1 month out in the summer, a lot of stuff has already been planned.
I could do from 3 to 6 on the 18th if it would be done by 6.
It sounds like the expectation is 3.5-ish hours, because in addition to the 3 hours for the actual interviews, there's a wrap-up period.
Yeah,
Saying there's a 3-hour tour?
We're going to do this in a 3.5 hours-ish. And tell me what is kind of the absolute threshold for how many, like if someone can't be there, if 2 people can't be there, can we be empowered to move forward without their presence, or how do we proceed and get this done, even if not everyone can be present?
I'll defer to the board at,
Yeah, you just need a quorum to conduct business from a legal standpoint, so.
So we can
Is it an open meeting, or can Zoom be utilized?
That's a good point.
I'm assuming these are gonna be closed session.
yeah, the interviews would be in closed session.
So then a Zoom meeting could.
If the other board members are comfortable with that.
I wouldn't mind that if someone logged in.
I just feel bad interviewing somebody via Zoom.
No,
Not everyone, but if one person
If
can't
one
make it.
person's there, I don't think that's a bad thing, considering how many video interviews occur these days.
Yeah.
Having
I
one
mean, Jim's big
person.
face plastered up there.
I
is no
know,
big deal.
it's right there.
We have a
Jim's big,
Yeah, that would be hilarious.
Okay, so then,
Can,
I'm available all 3 days, anytime.
I'm available anytime on the 18th and maybe the very early morning of the 19th, but completely gone the 20th.
so I can probably do the 18th, I would be coming, I would have to be here probably 4. I could probably make 4 work. I don't know that I could do the earlier part.
But we could do, everybody but Jim could make the 20th, and Jim could make the 20th on Zoom.
It's still questionable.
Can everyone make the 18th though? Did we just say that?
I have something on the
Oh, you have
18th, I just can't remember what it is, but I know I have something. I think it's something for my daughter.
So not available via Zoom then?
No.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm completely available. I'm the easiest to schedule.
Really? What, you're like?
Yeah.
How's
I can do
everybody on
this
the
one too.
17th?
yeah, I don't believe PAA is available the 17th. I'd have to double check with their dates for the 17th.
Can I,
And clarified,
would there be any way to do, could we do some sort of repurposing on the 16th of the board meeting?
Yeah, I was thinking that would
We
be.
are all available, obviously, on the 16th, but we
Yeah.
also are coming up on an agenda item to cancel the July 2nd meeting. So the other thing is still hold the July 2nd and repurpose the 16th.
I think that might be the best.
That would be
That
great.
might be the
That
best.
might be a good idea. I think maybe we
night-
should do that.
Good call on that one.
Yeah. If they're available.
yeah, if they're available. If they're not available, what's Plan B?
When are the most people available? The 18th during the day?
I mean, I can do it the
See if
18th.
Dan's on here on 18th. How many can make the 18th?
I can make the 18th
I
until
can, but not
like
to the
5 o'clock.
afternoon.
I can make it from 3 until 6. It's like we all have different times that we can make it
Looks like
then.
everybody on the 18th.
In the
Pretty much.
afternoon.
Yeah, I can't do the daytime, but
So 16th or the 18th?
16th is choice one.
Yep. And then the 18th, starting at what time for most to make it?
3.
I'm available all day.
4.
All day.
All day until
All day.
evening.
And that, yeah.
Okay. All right, I will reach out to PAA tomorrow morning see if that works on the 16th.
Yeah, let's all put holds on our calendars so we don't drop something in by accident.
The 18th.
Thank you.
On the next one, discussion and possible action on canceling July 2nd, 2024 village board meeting.
Motion to cancel.
Okay, there's a little bit of a reason behind this. We need to have, actually, I hate to say this, but we really need to have a special meeting due to a TIF discussion that the board needs to have a discussion on. And July 2nd would be cutting it real close to doing a lot of things that we need to do before Scott leaves. So we had a meeting with Brad and Scott, myself, and we were wondering if the 27th of June, we could have a special meeting.
That's not on the agenda, though. Scheduling a second special meeting for that.
Oh, okay.
Can't talk about that.
July, Jeff, I do believe July 2nd will work for that.
Okay, so is everybody okay with canceling July 2nd?
I thought we were keeping July 2nd because we might be canceling the following July.
Right.
Which is a most recent change of events due to the previous discussion about scheduling interviews.
To instead repurpose that to be interviews.
I mean, I guess we could do a contingent. that
Able to do
I
that.
think we could do all of this contingent on what Scott is
Right.
able to schedule.
Like, I'll make a motion to cancel the July 2nd meeting contingent upon repurposing the July 16th meeting to interviews.
So we won't cancel if we repurpose the 6th.
Correct.
Correct.
We need a secretary.
Yeah. No kidding.
I need a second.
I made a motion.
Oh,
So, second.
second.
I thought you meant you needed a second to digest.
Time out.
I thought he did too. That's what he was saying.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Please
All in
no.
favor, say
Aye.
aye. Oh, this is really messed up. Scott, I didn't think you'd be like Mark. Discussion and possible action on consulting plan agreement. Scott?
Yeah, the individuals helping with the review of the proposals, Jenna, Dave Vito, Public Works Director Engineer, Katie Jelassic, citizen member of the Planning Commission, and then President Knudsen. 4 proposals were received from Gray, Cedar Corporation, both, and Hunt.
Cedar Corporation, Foth, and Mead and Hunt were brought in for interviews, and I think combination of the proposals as well as the interview, both stood out ahead from the other 2, in part with their team based in the Milwaukee area. And then also, in talking with Foth, they've taken over 3 other communities that Mary Sensky had been working with, have been taken over by the Foth team. And then I had a chance to speak with Kathy Nicholas, who's the administrator for the now Village of Lisbon. She had worked with Foth as the planning consulting planner while at the Village of Waukesha. Worked with a different firm for a year at the Village of Lisbon, and then ended up bringing Foth in to work with the Village of Lisbon. So she spoke very highly of them as a team. They have a broad-based ability for, obviously, the comprehensive plan designs, and can help with narrowing in on neighborhood development plans if that's something of interest going forward, as well as expertise on staff with helping with TIF developments, if there's TIF amendments or new TIFs going forward, that they have the skill set within their staff to help the village with that. So the recommendation of the review committee was to consider Foth. I did have a chance to share their proposed agreement with Matt. Matt gave me some comments back, sent it back. Their attorney was getting back into the office today, and before coming up here, I had not seen any comments back. Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the comments were what we would typically have with indemnification, insurance requirements, and then they had some project-based language in there, which we're not hiring them for a project, we're hiring them for planning services.
Right. The majority of my comments were striking language that's not applicable to the services that Foth is anticipated to be offering. And Scott's right. There's just some, what I would consider minor changes to the indemnification and insurance requirements. I don't see anything that would be impeding to approval of this, but let's get those comments back from their attorney, I guess. So any approvals should be subject to final approval by staff and myself.
I guess the other nice thing from the Foth perspective is all of their planner staff, it's one rate, whereas the other firms had staggered rates for different level of planner rating or whatever. So it's 144 for all planners, their administrative assistants is a fixed rate, and then the mileage. And mileage is something that we're not unfamiliar with our consulting services.
Scott, the cost of using Foth is going to be higher than what we're paying Mary. Do you have a guess on how much of an increase we're going to be looking at?
Yeah, Foth is 144. Mary's adjusted bill rate from 2022 was $58.50, so we're looking at $85.50 more an hour. Again, for applications that are coming to the Plan Commission, those are services that are passed through those expenses to the applicants. That's the case with our consultant engineer, and off of memory, I think R.A. Smith, we're at about probably close to that same rate for our consultant engineering services. So they will track, as Mary has done and as R.A. Smith does, each application has its own file number. They track time that is spent on those applications. We get that invoice. We make payment to the vendor, but we also do invoice that out to the applicants.
Do you know on average, like how many hours a week we normally pay the planner?
It depends if there's staff initiated or village initiated items like code rewrites or amendments. That's going to be more frequent. We've been averaging about 4 to 5 items on the Plan Commission for about the last 12 months. And I'd say 1 or 2 of those items have been village initiated regarding code amendments. So there's no real rhyme or reason. It's cyclical.
So
yeah.
really, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. My question was leading to like the history behind why we use the consultant versus having someone as more of like a part-time hire. Is that?
Since before I started here, there's been a consulting planner. Before Mary Sensky, we actually contracted briefly with R.A. Smith, and then before that was Brad Steinke, who was a planner for the city of Mequon at the time. So it's been an expertise that's been contracted out, just given the specialty of that.
Is the city one contracted, or is he on staff?
That's a full-time. They've also got the activity to warrant a full-time planner.
Ours is a little more sporadic.
Correct.
So if, how much time typically ends up getting billed to the average business that comes?
An applicant?
Yeah.
I'd have to go back.
Side, yeah.
I'd have to go back and take a look at it. A lot of it depends on how complete the applications are. and how much of a deep dive needs to be done into the details on site plans, architecture.
As someone who's gone through the plan commission process multiple times, I can tell you it sucks when you get that bill at the end, especially if your project wasn't approved. And that was back at $58 an hour. I could tell you it's going to suck a lot worse, and we're going to have many more upset applicants. But you go through that process, and it's basically like dealing with an attorney. Like, you know, every email you send over is getting billed. Sorry, Matt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking the truth.
It's the nature of your business, though. Every question you send over, every thing that, you know, you're just trying to be like innocent, like, well, am I able to just switch this? That one email back, it hits you and it gets itemized out, and you get that bill in the mail. And, you know, so when my application was rejected, I don't know, what was that, way back when, for the beer garden, to get that like a few weeks after you get a rejection also, you know, to pay now hundreds of dollars on top of your application fees. Now to pay, there's going to be some applicants that I'm sure are going to be tickling that $1,000 or more mark.
Or more.
Yeah,
That-
because
that's-
it can vary based upon, like I said, simple questions. Now all of a sudden I don't know what this consultant, you know, does, but it's like, is every email a half-hour increment, you know, in their billing system? Who knows? But that cost is gonna add up quickly for some people, especially with the properties we have in the village, most of them being non-conforming, and everything having to go through the plan. I shouldn't say everything, but a lot of it having to go through the plan commission, and a lot of it having to have planner involvement in it. Oof.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about this. You know, we're trying to create a business-friendly environment and trying to get people to do redevelopment in the village, which would take considerable planning in order to do. And then they're going to be hit with this bill of $144 an hour, which could add up very quickly. Once word gets out, that's going to scare people.
What's our other, is there an alternative?
I don't see that hiring a staff planner is an option. We don't have enough, and then that's going to be hitting the taxpayers. The surrounding communities in the area, the majority of them have a contract planning service, which is going to be in this meet and hunt is $180
We've been
an
lucky for the
hour.
last many years.
We've been getting very good.
Isn't the question, the thing that's on the agenda, though, is in regard to the suggestion for Foth as our consultant, not necessarily how we're going to be paying the fees, right? You know, that's a completely different discussion.
Well, I'm just wondering if there's another alternative outside of
Yeah, I was wondering that
this
too.
that we're to approve tonight, because that's my part of it.
It sounds to me like this is the way business is being done in surrounding municipalities, and that we were very fortunate to have such great expertise in Mary and have that relationship for so long. I would also point out that although we're going to be paying substantially more, or someone's going to be paying substantially more, we are actually acquiring increased services because we have the expertise of 4 individuals that are able to work at any point on any given project. I don't have a problem with this. It was great that we had such a smoking deal for so long. Miss you, Mary.
Where do we get married through that? Like, why? What's the price discrepancy, or where's that?
She was her own business.
Right.
And that's what I'm
So-
wondering.
She's
is
a rare
that-
bird.
Well, okay, yeah, so I don't know how, it sounds like you've been looking for a long time, and they seem very well established, and I'm sure they're excellent. But sometimes, you know, going through like a private business is a lot more beneficial versus like a whole firm. And if there is multiple of these, there might be more of that available, but
I sent proposals out to 8 different businesses. There was an individual out there that is basically her sole business is just herself. She is not taking on any more customers.
okay.
This is the marketplace that was sent out to 7 or 8, 4 responded. This is the free market private sector that provides this service. We don't have, in my opinion, the activity to have a part-time, if we could find a part-time planner, let alone a full-time planner for the village.
No, I was
With the
just-
current economic circumstances facing municipal financing.
I was just wondering if there was another, direction like we got with Mary, but you answered that with, I didn't know if there was other independents out there that we.
Tried, yes, unsuccessful.
I'm not shocked at that billing rate. I mean, at all. I don't think you're not gonna get anything much less than that. I think
Nope.
even with, I'm shocked Mary was only charging us
I am
that
too.
amount. And I'm actually sad we're losing her expertise. I always thought she was very informative.
I can
So-
tell you, I just talked to Mary on her last week, and mentioned to her who we were looking at beginning, and she had told me again that they had picked up most of her business around this area, and they've been contacting her and consulting with her and checking up to see what her ideas were and different things, and that kind of helped me make the decision that, yeah, this group is on their toes. They're contacting their last planner and getting some information, and, if they have a question, she's more than happy to help them with it, so. I agree, the price is like, holy cow, but, the other ones were right in that market and
Yeah, the holy
so
cow.
it's like, what
Is the
do we
old price.
do?
Yeah,
Need a planner.
Do we tell people what they will be charged per hour by our planner, correct or not?
Yeah, we will certainly make sure this information, because it is a change from the way it's been, clear. And then we do have ordinance language on the books right now for pass-through fees for consulting services related to plan commission applications. So that's already in place in the village ordinances.
And the applicants, if I'm not mistaken, they're given a notice of the chargeback, correct?
Yes, yeah, there's a sign-off, there's the application that they sign, and then they also sign a notice of,
Professional services reimbursement.
Yep.
Okay.
is there one specific contact that will be like our main planner?
yeah, there, we'll have one specific contact with both, but he'll have a team of 3 behind him. And so we've already got on the calendar a meeting for next week in anticipation to begin that transition to hopefully have them prepared and helping with applications for the July Plan Commission meeting, which deadlines for that are this Thursday.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve both as the contract for our village planner, planning firm, I guess, per the agreement with the village attorney and staff,
Yeah, subject to final approval by the village attorney.
that.
Second, Rhodey.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Discussion and possible action on 2024-2025 liquor license renewals. Think everybody got the updated version?
Yep, I sent that out. Hopefully everyone got it.
Just gonna go right to the updated one. Okay. First one is for applicants for Class A beer license and Class A liquor cider only license. We'll look for a motion to approve Capital LLC, DBA BP, DBA Quick Trip, McCann Management Company, Corner Pump, and DBA Stop and Go.
I
Vicky can can do these as presented.
Yeah.
As presented.
I think how we've done them in the past is by license type. So
Oh, just
just
by-
separate motions for the applicants for Class A beer, Class A liquor as presented. Now, I know Jenna had mentioned in one of her memos that some of these are contingent on payment of fees. Is that still the case?
Yeah, so I'll point out, it should be on the last page.
Yeah, that's, the wine store. I was gonna separate him out.
Yeah, so his is actually more than just the fees. He has to get his conditional use grant information in as well. So he has to sign his row permit. And was there something else, Scott, or just his row permit?
Right-of-way permit, yeah.
Yeah, okay, his right-of-way permit to use the 3 parking stalls, as well as any of the fees that he has. So he's got like a personal property fee. So all of these are actually, they have some sort of fee. So like it's their personal property fee that's late, or if they have an outstanding balance on their utility bill. I kind of all lumped them all together, but Twisted Vine's the only one where he has to actually get something else other than the fees in. So that's his conditional use grant. He has to get his right-of-way permit in.
So there's 6, so can we just say with each that it's contingent?
Yeah, contingent on payments. Yeah, yep, so those are the ones that still have outstanding payments.
Okay, then I'm gonna go with Class A beer license, Class A liquor cider only, as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second, Rhodey.
Need a motion and second, discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved, applicant for Class A combination license, Class A beer, Class A liquor. I will look for a motion to approve as presented.
So moved, Preskett.
Second, Gergen.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Item 2 is applicants for Class B combination license, Class B liquor, and Class B beer. I'll look for a motion to approve as presented with the
Contingent.
contingency that everything is paid up.
And then
We missed one.
Did you skip the, you
I think
skipped
you
Class
skipped Class B
B?
beer license.
Yeah.
Just one on that
Skip
one.
Class B, I was running to see who.
There's one right at the top.
Right at the top of page.
Just one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, applicant for Class B beer license.
Yeah, there's only one.
Motion to approve.
Second, Kaiser.
But that one has a contingency on it. Do we need to motion that?
Yeah,
This is one of the ones that are subject to,
subject to
Subject.
contingency.
Is as presented? Does that cover that, or do we need to say?
Yeah, the contingency is presented there.
Okay.
The only one I would be concerned about is the one Jenna highlighted for Twisted Vine.
Which is Twisted Vine, yeah.
Yeah, so when we get to that one, maybe just accept Twisted Vine and we'll do a separate motion for Twisted Vine.
All right, still motion to approve as presented.
Second, still.
we have a motion and a second on Class B beer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Class B combination license, Class B beer and Class B liquor. Look for a motion to approve as presented.
Motion to approve, Rhodey.
Second, Preskett.
And that's the one that also has the stipulation for the right-of-way conditional use
No,
approval.
the Class B
We're
combo.
gonna do that separate.
There's some ones that have outstanding fees in the Class B combo.
There you go. There's 16.
Oh, yep, no, you're correct. So on this motion, I would accept out Twisted Vine. Let's do a separate motion on Twisted Vine.
Okay, Twisted Vine, we'll do a separate one. As presented, except for Twisted Vine.
Twisted Vine is under Class B combination, beer and liquor.
So I think the motion on the floor then that's been seconded is approval as presented. I would suggest that that be amended to accept Twisted Vine, so we can do it.
I will amend the motion delete Twisted Vine,
Except Twisted Vine.
except Twisted Vine.
Second, Stans, Krasavich.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then we've got also a,
Well, let's handle Twisted Vine. So Jenna, what are the contingencies specifically that
Yep,
he needs to
so-
satisfy, please?
Yep, Twisted Vine has to pay their outstanding personal property tax. They also had one of their distributors sent us an email and said that he has overdue invoices with them, and then he needs to sign his right-of-way permit. That was in the conditional use grant for the 3 parking stalls for outdoor dining.
okay, so then I'll look for a motion in Class B liquor and Class B beer
Well,
for Twisted Vine, subject to,
the contingencies as presented by the clerk.
what's that?
Subject to the contingencies presented by the clerk.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, so is a contingency of a vendor payment something that we are supposed to consider for the license?
For distributors, yes.
Or, I'm sorry, for the distributor, yes, okay. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve with the contingency as presented.
Second, Kaiser.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Applicant for Class B beer and Class C wine. I'll look for a motion to approve as presented. We need to say contingencies.
I think there's one
Couple of
on
them in there.
there. Nixon has, yes.
Just one.
Yeah, they have invoices.
All right, but we're going to approve those as a group with contingencies. Great. I'll make a motion to approve Class B beer and Class C wine license applicants with contingencies as presented.
Second.
Okay.
Second, Rudy.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. On to I, possible action on committee appointments. I have 2 members for the Historic Preservation Commission. Cheryl Mance, who was the Planning Commission liaison, but she now is going to be the private member. And Teresa Hoff, who is now on the Planning Commission, she will be the Planning Commission member. I will look for a motion to approve both of those to the Historic Preservation.
Motion to approve.
Second, Gergen.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then on the Park and Rec, I needed a citizen member, and I asked Kelly Behrman, who's on the Board of Review, and she said she would love to do that. So I would like to put Kelly Behrman on the Park and Rec Board.
Motion to approve appointment of Kelly Behrman to the Parks and Rec Board.
Second, Kaiser.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Possible action on approval of checks and invoices for all funds. I will look for a motion to approve all funds except for the library as presented.
Motion to approve?
Second, Grabowski.
This is for May 2024, I'm sorry. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I will look for a motion to acknowledge the checks and invoices for the library fund of May 2024.
Motion to acknowledge the library fund.
Second, Krasavich.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are no citizens here, so we are going to move on to item 10.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Gergen.
motion and a second. Is there any comments, questions, discussion? Anybody want to talk a little longer? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are hereby adjourned. Thank you, everyone.